good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Wednesday Wise webinar. My name is Caitlin Russell with the International Franchise Association, and I'm happy to introduce our great speakers today. A reminder before we get started that this is going to be recorded and it will be made available on the community site later this afternoon. Today's content is brought to you by our great sponsor, Sochi, and the topic is going to be a marketing conversation with Cinnaholics. And so who's going to be talking to us today is Rob Reed, Senior Advisor with Sochi, and Heather Stennis, Director of Marketing with Cinnaholics. If you have any questions for the speakers today, please put them in the questions box and they'll address them towards the end. All right, Rob, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thanks so much, Caitlin, and great to be here at the virtual IFA. Big fan of the conference and of franchising in general. Again, my name's Rob Reed. I'm a Senior Advisor for Sochi. What is Sochi? It is a marketing platform designed specifically for multi-location brands of all types, with a pretty big emphasis on the franchise model. Marketing functions within Sochi include listings and location data management, local search optimization, which we're going to talk a lot about today, reputation management, social media management at the national, regional, and local levels, localized advertising, chatbots. It's quite a robust platform. There's even many more to it. Sochi is really a command center for scalable, localized marketing. In addition, I'm also the host of Clicks to Bricks. It's a podcast about multi-location marketing. If you want to check that out, it's at clicks2bricks.fm. And I am joined today by Heather Stennis from Cinnaholic, and I will have her introduce herself and the brand as well.
Thanks. My name is Heather. I'm with Cinnaholic. I've been with this brand for about a little over 2 years. We are I say international. We have locations in Canada and 51 across the states. So we're 57 locations total. We are a gourmet cinnamon roll bakery. We specialize in cinnamon rolls, custom cinnamon rolls with over 20 frostings and toppings. We do edible cookie dough, brownies, cookies, banana bread, and everything we serve is plant-based, 100% vegan. There's not another national chain like us, so that's kind of sets us apart from our competition. And we are really heavily focused. All of our marketing is really social media, SEO, and we rely very heavily on our partnership with Sochi. They have been great for us in so many different facets, from listings to online reputation, and happy to be here and tell you guys more about what we've been doing.
All right, thanks, Heather. And yeah, we're gonna go deep into how Heather is managing her SEO in a bit, but I'm gonna set the table for a little bit and go deep into really this one functional area within Sochi and within localized marketing, local search, or local SEO, as it's also known. But I'm really right up front here. I want to kind of cut to the chase on this. We say local search in general. What we mean for the most part is Google, right? Google is got 90% or so of the search market. It is very much a monopoly, and that's got good things and bad things. It's great if you're an investor in Google. Not so great if you're trying to compete with Google. But if you're a business, especially a business with brick and mortar presence, Google can be a fantastic tool. Certainly a double-edged sword in many respects. But once you kind of move past that and just embrace it, it's a fantastic marketing channel. And I don't know actually that marketers truly appreciate the magnitude and the scale of what Google does. And when I say Google, I'm also talking about, the traditional search box. I'm talking about your Google My Business presence, all of those listings, talking about the Google Maps app on mobile devices, and some of the other parts of the Google ecosystem. And what I don't think a lot of people realize is that Google is the single biggest driver of foot traffic to brick and mortar businesses. So you've got, you think about all of the different ways that traffic is being driven to your locations, or that you are actively driving traffic to your locations. So, you've got the oldest marketing channel ever created was word of mouth, right? Word of mouth drives foot traffic to your businesses. Then you've got, your Facebook ads, you've got billboards, maybe you're still buying radio advertising. There are dozens of channels you can use to, passively and actively drive foot traffic to your businesses. Of all of those, Google, I guarantee you, is the #1 single driver of foot traffic. The amount of search that is happening on mobile devices specifically, where there's just absolute intent to find a local service or product, has grown exponentially, hundreds, thousands of % over the past 10 years. To the point, that I made earlier of this monopoly, Google really sits between your business and your customers. Like it or not, Google has, pretty much positioned itself between you. So you can either get frustrated with that reality, or you can say, okay, how do we work with this reality? And that's really local search and local SEO. So as we dive into that, well, I'll also just say that, there is also Apple Maps. They are certainly a player and a growing player in this that you need to pay attention to. There's Bing, there's Yelp, there are other players, but again, the vast majority of this function is going to be Google. Another thing that most marketers may not realize is that about 80% of these searches, these local searches, are unbranded. They are category searches, right? So yeah, and you'll find this if you look in your Google My Business dashboard and you look at the search terms that are actually driving people to your locations, you'll see your brand searched for a bunch, but you'll see all these other category keywords, which make up probably about 80% of the total. So what that means is, like, consumers are 4 times as likely to search for the category. And so I can tell you actually, a little story about how I dealt with this early in my career. I actually helped Starbucks, which obviously isn't a franchise brand, rank for coffee shop. You'd think that when you went to Google and searched for coffee shop, you would find a Starbucks. But way back, this is probably 6 or 8 years ago, I was actually sitting in Starbucks headquarters, and there's literally a Starbucks on the first floor of Starbucks headquarters in Seattle. And I pulled out my phone and I searched for coffee shop in Google, and I was there with Starbucks marketers and showed them that Starbucks on the first floor was the 50th result for coffee shop. We just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled through all these local mom and pop coffee shops until we got to the Starbucks. Needless to say, they were a little surprised at that. It was kind of, I think, an assumption that they made that, of course, the biggest coffee brand in the world would be ranking for, the category term coffee shop. And they weren't. And it's because they weren't set up to rank for that term. They were, a massive brand. They assumed most people were just searching for Starbucks, and they weren't. And and we went about fixing that through a holistic, comprehensive local SEO strategy, to the point where, 3-4 months later, They called me and said, we just searched for coffee shop and we're the #1 result. So this can work for Starbucks and it can work for, you know, the smallest of brands out there. But one of the main points of local SEO is that you need to rank, you need to pay attention to your category keywords. Because what this is, if you think about it from a consumer point of view, consumers have a need, they have a want, they have, you know, some need that needs to be filled in that moment. They're not necessarily thinking like, you know, I want lunch, or they're not thinking that I want Chipotle, you know, they're thinking I want a burrito, right? They're not thinking I want, you know, Five Guys, they're thinking I want a burger. So that's what they're searching for. So that's, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and think about what their behavior is like and orient your search strategy around that. So a big part of that is, of course, ranking. And when it comes to mobile and Google right now, the current state of affairs is that Google has the 3-pack. So this is the holy grail. This is where you know, 93% of the traffic is going to come from. So when you're, and this of course is something that each location will have its own individual rank for your category keywords. This is pretty much the goal of every location for all of its category keywords to be in the Google 3-pack. So like I was saying before, you know, you really kind of have to, it's really hard to get your head around the scale of this. You know, there's hundreds of billions of Google searches, you know, every year. And half of those now have local intent. So this really kind of supports that claim up front that, like, you know, all your foot traffic is coming through Google in one form or another. Sometimes it's just, you know, they know exactly what, you know, when I want to order from a business, I go to Google Maps and I search for that business and I use Google My Business as essentially 411. You know, there's that use case, right? So obviously you want to have your Google data all accurate there. And it's very, you know, it's very much a part of the buying journey. Of course, it's really heavy down on the purchase intent side of the purchase funnel or journey. Okay, so now that we understand really what the need is and why you need to do this, now we transition to the how. You know, how do you actually go about executing on a local search strategy for your brand? So the first one, you know, like I mentioned, Google My Business is the first place you start, but then there are several others that really matter. Might not be one that immediately comes to mind, but Facebook is actually a big player in this. Every multi-unit brand has a corresponding page for every location on Facebook, whether you like it or not. You know, I've talked to many marketers that are like, you know, we just have a brand page. We don't even have local pages. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You know, you go on Facebook, there they are. Well, I want to take those down. You can't do that. Facebook won't let you, right? So it's really, when it comes to your Facebook local pages, it's really a choice. Make them an asset or make them a liability where the data is inaccurate. There's no content on those pages. People are leaving reviews there that you're not seeing, you know, or you can take control of those and manage them. And of course, there's various degrees of managing your local Facebook pages. But there's a whole set of best practices when it comes to local SEO to actually leveraging those local Facebook assets. And then Yelp is still very much a player. I'd say that a lot of marketers are seeing a decline in the number of reviews that are being left there. and the overall influence of Yelp in the marketplace, which I'm sure comes as a welcomed um, trend in the market. But that said, we're just thinking of Yelp right now as an SEO channel, right? And so Google does give a lot of weight to those Yelp listings, and particularly that the data on Yelp is accurate and consistent to the data that is on GMB and the data that would be also on your local pages on your website. So Google's crawling all of those and making sure there's consistency. And that consistency is a factor in how high you're going to rank. Down to the point where if you have, in your street address, it says AVE period, and then in another one, it's spelled out avenue, that's actually a negative factor. It needs to be absolutely consistent because Google's just a robot, just looking at all the data and making judgment calls based on that. So the three big ones when it comes to this that need pretty active management are Google My Business, Facebook, and Yelp. And then, then there's, like I mentioned before, there's Bing, there's a whole list up to, many hundred that are potential. What we call the long tail of these listings, directory listings, are definitely losing weight in terms of the impact on SEO and just in general, consumers aren't going to these places. But there are certainly a dozen maybe that definitely need to be managed, and these are the top three. Okay. Once you think about the conversion funnel with these assets, so the consumer does a category search, you're in the top three, and they click on your Google My Business listing, and then they're like, okay, I want to actually go to the source here, and then they click on the web link that's in your GMB listing. Where do they go? This is a big factor. Do they go to your main website? And then, okay, I'm on the main website. Great. Where is this location that I actually want to go to? Then do they have to go to your store locator and kind of navigate through that? Or, excuse me, are those local assets, those external third-party local assets, linked directly to the local landing page on your website? That is the way you're supposed to do it. That's good for the consumer. The consumer makes it easier for the consumer, but just as importantly, you want all of those, your GMB, your Facebook, your Yelp, they should all be linking to the corresponding local page and obviously local URL on your website for SEO purposes. And the reason there is that, and this is kind of a principle that I've espoused, since day one around this stuff, is that you really want to seem like a mom and pop business. And the Google algorithm actually has a bias toward mom and pop businesses versus national chains, whether they be a corporate or a franchise structure. Because Google, without getting too deep into the weeds, Google's all about serving up relevance. And Google thinks that a mom and pop is more relevant than a chain brand. May or may not be the case, but that's just the way Google looks at it. So what Google wants to see is more mom and pop type behavior. And so you think about what a mom and pop looks like to Google. A mom and pop has a website, just one, right? Because they just have one location. They've got a Facebook page that links to that website and vice versa, a GMB, a Yelp, and they all link to each other, right? So you want to replicate that for each location in a chain structure in order to maximize your SEO and effectively look like a mom and pop to Google. So reviews is the next big factor in local SEO. And 10 years ago, reviews didn't matter at all. And like over the past 10 years, every year, reviews have increased in prominence as a ranking factor in SEO. Not coincidentally, reviews have become a big part of Google, the monopoly that we talked about. So, you know, they want people to respond to the reviews on Google My Business, so that customers are heard and responded to. And of course, Google rewards you by giving you better ranking. But it also actually monitors how you're responding on Yelp and Facebook, and potentially some others. So here are the top 10 factors for search ranking. And you know, distance, obviously, that's the number one. That's the one you can't control. How far a person actually is from your store and whether or not there's a competitor closer. That's the one we can't. Organic links and citations, we just kind of talked about that a little bit. But reviews, like number 3. So, and these are all of the kind of sub factors under reviews. It's going to be the number of reviews, how quickly you're responding. That's a big one. That's a big one that you can control. You can't necessarily control how many reviews customers are leaving. You can try to influence that a bit. You can't control whether or not those reviews contain the keywords that you want to rank for. But again, you know, you can try to ask your customers to leave those reviews. So this is big. This is big. If you're not doing this, then you're leaving, you know, a lot on the table. You know, like I mentioned, this is how you do it. And I think we're going to get into this a little bit with Heather, who is actually managing some of this, kind of like some of the steps that Cinnaholic is using to actually drive results through reviews, and also trying, you know, how to manage that within a franchise structure. So these are just some of the best practices around reviews. Again, we're gonna dive into this, you know, a little bit more. Operationalizing review management, not, you know, this is one of those things that's kind of simple but not easy. You know, you just need to respond to all the reviews that customers leave. Simple. Actually doing it, you know, in a franchise structure, not easy. That's the, you know, that's the big challenge here. Let's skip through that. And some basic tips, you know, timeliness, personalization when you're responding, tone, and also, you know, and many times, you know, seeing if it's a negative review, seeing if you can take it offline. You know, have them email you, so you don't have this kind of like, you know, argument going on in the public. You can avoid that. You can also potentially turn negative reviews to positive, you know, thus increasing your star rating. Because, you know, this is like you know, you think about the psychology of reviews, and you know, a lot of times, you know, people have a bad experience for whatever reason. They're highly motivated to leave a review. They really just want to vent. And of course, your satisfied customers are not motivated at all to leave a review. You know, that's just something they might be doing out of the kindness of their heart. So you really kind of need to balance that out, because you're going to have the highly motivated negative reviews. You're going to see most of those. but you're not going to necessarily see their positive reviews. So that's another part of a strategy around both local search and reputation management is like, how do we encourage our happy customers to leave reviews? And, there's a whole list of practices there with surveys or table tents or what have you that just kind of encourage customers to leave a review. One of the best things to do around that is to respond, right? Because then at least they think, if they see a history of positive reviews being responded to, then they're like, well, at least I'm gonna know I'm being heard, and I'm looking forward to getting my response, my acknowledgement as a loyal and happy customer. So you gotta think about, kind of what's motivating these consumers to leave these reviews. And, almost 90% of the time, if they feel like customers feel it's like they're being heard, and their issue is being resolved, they'll change that review to a positive review. So you can totally turn the tables there. Of course, it's next to impossible to manage, reviews across all these different platforms for any more than, a handful of locations. You certainly do need, a technology solution that not just brings it all together so it can be managed, but gives you all the necessary insights to know whether or not your strategy is working and to surface themes. The native platforms aren't going to do that for you. Then aren't going to give you some of the operational insights that you might need to be like, hey, this location might have a problem, beyond just a couple customers complaining. There might be actually something going on there that we need to address, that we at corporate certainly weren't aware of. Okay, finally, the data. One of the great things about Google My Business and local SEO in general is this path to clear ROI that you can get to if you have the right tools and you just manage the data properly. So again, kind of putting yourself back into the consumer's shoes, you search for a category, I'm looking for a burrito, and you get a couple restaurants come up, you click Chipotle and you click get directions. Now you think about that from a consumer point of view. How many times have you clicked for directions and not actually ended up at the business? It's that conversion rate is easily above 90%. And these data are all living in Google My Business. It will tell you what keywords people are searching for and how those are converting to clicks for directions, which is probably like the highest converting. Then you got clicks to website, which using your Google Analytics, you can actually track that to online ordering pretty clearly. Then you got click to call, and if you're a type of business that, actually does a lot of sales over the phone, and, people aren't just calling to see how late you're open, which they do less and less because that data is so easily available. You can start to say, start to make some assumptions, okay, these are the conversion rates for those clicks that I'm willing to accept, and here's my basket size, and okay, here's how much business Google My Business is driving. And then if I do all these things and I see that data go up, well, there you go. That delta is your ROI. It's pretty clear cut. And again, not a lot of people are doing it from my experience. I'm kind of amazed when I talk to CMOs and they're either not aware that the data is there or it's not getting to them. I think some of it is like, so much of this is passive, right? This isn't highly active marketing. Like once you're turning the dials and pulling the levers here and there. But once you get it set up, it's set up, and it's mostly just capturing demand that's out there. I want a burrito, I want a coffee, I want a cinnamon roll, and I search for it. So it's not a big splashy ad campaign that you can point to and said, oh, look what we did. That said, it's driving a massive amount of foot traffic to your businesses, and really kind of deserves that level of investment and attention. All right, that's my spiel. I did it in 31 minutes.
Good job.
So let's talk about some real world case here with Heather. So the first question, Heather, is what category keywords does Cinnaholic want to rank for, and who do you think you're competing for those category keywords?
So we're probably competing with like a Cinnabon, and we actually will use them in our Cinnabon is one of our search words when building ads. But a lot of it is, like you were saying, more like the generic. We just cinnamon rolls, coffee, bakery, vegan. We don't put our name. We're a startup. People aren't Googling Cinnaholic. They're Googling bakery near me, wedding catering near me. So we kind of capitalize on just the generic terms and capture them from that.
And talk to me about, kind of your first step into local search and saying, okay, this needs to be a part of our marketing mix. This is a channel that we care about. How did that start for you and for the brand? And I mean, is that something you inherited coming in, or was that something you started yourself?
A little bit of both. We did not have online ordering when I started, and last year, early pandemic, we were scrambling, like, what do we do? How do we keep our doors open? And myself and our small team, we actually just built online ordering sites for all of our locations, which kind of hurt us. We thought it was going to hurt us initially with SEO, but it actually helped. So each location has their Google My Business page. That individual, if you go to that, it's not Cinnaholic.com, it's CinnaholicAtlanta.com. It's the store specific. So we made it really easy to one click, and people are ordering cinnamon rolls and picking it up or having it delivered. So that was I inherited all the GMB pages. It was just enhancing them with that online ordering feature, and then adding to actually building on ads from that.
So is Google My Business has its own ordering features built right in, where you can either use the third party, you can choose the third party of choice, I think, or Google's got its own ordering thing. What are you guys using for? Can customers place an order from GMB, or do they need to click out?
They're still clicking out. We asked the franchisees their top three. Like some of them are on 3 to 5 third-party delivery sites, or Easy Cater, something like that. So we kind of asked them their preference and then set up their page accordingly.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the third-party delivery services. They're pretty smart. They've got a ton of resources. And I find it interesting that, they're all advertising on your GMB pages. Like every time I come to a GMB page, it's got a Grubhub ad or it's got a DoorDash ad.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, if those guys feel like this asset is like really valuable, like maybe I should, take it a little bit more seriously, right?
And and alternatively, we kind of use them as advertising as well. A franchisee may be hesitant to get on third party, but we explained it's a great marketing tool. Again, as a startup, people, a DoorDash user, Uber Eats user isn't familiar with Cinnaholic. They're just going to their trusted delivery platform, and then they see Cinnaholic and what is this, and see that they can have these treats delivered to them. They love it.
Yeah, especially in a kind of a challenger brand like yours. The third-party delivery services are just a huge marketing channel for awareness, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Let's see. let's see if we can kind of. So are you, how much time, I mean, how much time per week would you say you're devoting to your, to local SEO?
Just a few hours. You know, we a lot of time goes into it when a page gets created, and then we set up the ad. At this point, it's more just monitoring. You know, like making sure the keywords are there, and kind of tracking the analytics on the where people are coming to our online ordering. So not too much time is put into it, but just the question in general: how critical is technology? It's just for us, technology it's beyond critical for us, whether it be online ordering or search and SEO or just Facebook, social media ads. We're a bakery, but we really rely heavily on technology to get us to survive.
Yeah, I mean, it really, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world really didn't build for multi-unit. Like there's very little native tools in there for multi-unit that make it manageable. So which is also why they've built APIs and have a robust ecosystem, of course, like a Soci, to be able to build upon. It very much is just a necessary part of the marketing stack for any multi-location business.
Soci makes my life very easy for social media scheduling, for tracking, reports, analytics, listings management. It really we're 57 locations. We are quickly growing, and with each new franchise, I get kind of scared. I'm like, oh, we're growing so fast, but then I'm like, Soci, it's all streamlined right there.
Well, yeah, I mean that kind of goes back to my question of how much time you actually spend on this. I mean, like, can you venture a guess of how much time you might spend on it if you didn't have Soci, if you were just kind of like,
oh god,
natively?
That would be
a full-time role?
Yes, all day.
Yeah, nice. All right, let's go into the reviews part, because the reviews part is probably, did you include that in your kind of like the time spent on local search, or is reviews, are you thinking about reputation separately? And
a little separately.
yeah, I mean, it is a separate function that just has a huge impact on local search, right? Because I mean, the way to think about reputation is it's kind of serving two audiences. It's serving the customer, which is how most people think about reputation management. It's customer relationship management, but it's also serving the Google algorithm, right? But that's just kind of like, that's just really a benefit of being more customer centric and engaging with your customers. And again, it comes back to my, principle of like, you just got to be a mom and pop. And of course, mom and pops are responding to every single review that comes in, almost immediately, because like that's their entire business. That's
yeah,
their
they get it.
Living. They get it. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be forgiven for not getting it so much at corporate, when you're running 57 locations.
Right.
But, so talk to us then about then your reputation management strategy as kind of separate from local search. How is that something also that you inherited, or did you initiate that?
Again, a little bit of both. Locations are, they were every franchisee has access to their own Yelp page and Google, and originally they were kind of accessing those natively. We just recently started opening up Soci to our franchise partners to utilize to kind of manage their online reputation and make it easier for them. But the challenge with them is for getting them to understand the importance of responding to those reviews. And I explain it as, if a customer came into the bakery and whether they complained or they said this was the best cinnamon roll of their life, you wouldn't just stare blankly at them and turn around. And that's how what they're doing to these people online. If they don't respond, it's just I just left you a compliment, or I just complained about something. I want to be heard, obviously. So just really trying to explain that to them, like, your business lives outside of your four walls. It's, on these, it's online in all these places. And you have to acknowledge people, and you have to do it quickly. If somebody had a bad experience, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear from you 3 weeks later. They've already forgotten, but, acknowledge it quickly to obviously resolve the issue, and to stay top of mind on with the customer, and also top ranking on Google.
Yeah, so like talk to me a little bit about the kind of how you operationalized reputation management, like vis-a-vis, Sochi. Like tell us what that experience was like, and then, in terms of educating the franchisees and then getting them. Let's talk about the successful ones.
So when they come through training, like literally, they come to Atlanta for a week of training, and we have 1 day of office training, and a lot of that is marketing and online reputation focus. So it starts there. It starts before they're even open. We explain how important the reviews are, and how customer service in store and online, how important it is for our brand. So they know that, and then closer to opening, we're getting ready, like you're getting you set up, and then once their doors open and they're live on Yelp and Google, we give them access. We give them, like I said, giving them access to Sochi now, and just constantly training them. And our team kind of just monitors at this point, how many open reviews does Knoxville have, or Atlanta have, and we're just kind of giving those owners a nudge. These are your customers, you need to respond, kind of thing. But it's just training from the get-go and ongoing training with them.
And then, so of the 57, so far, how many locations would you say are, kind of maybe like, who's getting a gold medal, who's getting a silver medal, who's getting a bronze medal? Like, what does that look like?
I really could tell you this, the different cities and owners that do it. For example, Knoxville and Pigeon Forge, it's 2 different locations, one owner, but she just gets it. She understands the social media importance for growing her business. She understands her customers live online, and she is so active on, social media and responding to reviews. And she has 2 of the top grossing stores in our system. Then we have the ones that, we have some that, they don't even look at their emails, and they're so busy in store. So just kind of, always the gold, everybody's getting a medal, but some people are just, it's hard to,
off the podium.
Yeah, sure.
What percentage would you say are fully engaged? Obviously the goal is 100% adoption, everybody getting gold. Like, what stage would you say you're at right now?
I would say literally probably half of our system is engaged, and probably half of that is fully, and then the other half is just kind of just a reminder. They will respond, but maybe it does take them 4 or 5 days. So they're still responding. They're just not as timely, but they are engaged. And then probably half the system, they're just a little lost and overwhelmed and need a lot more hand-holding.
Are there any plans or kind of new tactics, or have you tried to lean on Sochi to do like a webinar or anything like that?
We did. We just had 2 webinars. I think it was last week with Sochi, with the franchisees, and they were all very excited to see, because they get overwhelmed sometimes, and they're saying, "Oh, I get so many reviews," and we'll look, and we're like, "You had 3 in a month. That's not that overwhelming, it takes just a minute to respond." So they have that mentality that they're getting so many reviews, and then so she kind of streamlines that into one place. So already we're seeing a positive response from the people that were on the webinar, and they're excited to get on. And they, the owner that I just mentioned, the Knoxville Pigeon Forge owner, she's been on for months, and she's just such a fan of Sochi. She's like, it does make my life so much easier.
Have you tried to kind of share her results with the system to be like, this works? Like,
her name's Holly, and everybody asks, what's Holly doing? What's Holly doing? And there's a recipe, and we give everybody all of her steps, and whether they take it or not, but that's what she's doing.
Nice. We're gonna have Holly on the next one of these.
Oh yeah.
That would be great. Like, I know one of the big objections I've heard in the past with franchisees is like, I'm running my store. I'm never in front of my computer. How am I but of course, Sochi has a mobile app, and what's the adoption like of the mobile app versus using the desktop version?
I think the mobile app is huge because exactly they are in the bakery most times. If they make a lot of our owners are very active, like actually making the dough and frosting the rolls. But once they realize that they can step away and be on their phone and knock it out in just a few minutes, it makes they're much more responsive to that. But yeah, it's also time management. That's part of it too. A lot of these people aren't marketers. They just want to get in the restaurant industry and live that dream. But we have to tell them you have to set office time or admin time each week just to check your emails, to respond to those reviews, just to stay engaged with your business outside of what you're actually seeing in store.
Yeah, I just clicked to the next slide, which we've been obviously talking about quite a bit here, is the challenges, and I think franchisee adoption is the biggest challenge for it's not unique to local search or reputation. Empowering franchisees to actually do their own marketing is a big challenge, and it's what the Sochi product team spends most of its time trying to solve for in one form or another. Like with the reviews, a lot of the responses you can just upload a bunch of kind of general common responses, right? So they don't even have to type out most of the response each time, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there's that, and what other challenges? I mean, are you guys doing some of it from corporate at all? Are you stepping in when it's kind of necessary? Because of course, Soci enables you to do that as well.
With
Right?
responding to the reviews?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will, especially like a newly open location. Those first few weeks, they're so crazy and they're trying to figure out their operations that we definitely, and that's such a heavy volume of people are coming in at once. We definitely kind of help them out with that during that time frame, and then kind of pass the reins to them. And then social media, we definitely help as well. Always scheduling generic content for all locations through Soci. Just a lot of them, a challenge there as well. They don't understand, they're seeing that, well, you're doing it for me. Yeah, but I don't know that it's snowing in your city or raining in your city, and those local posts that you can do, it's cold today, come in for free coffee, something like that. Trying to get them to just own that local piece for social media as well as a challenge.
Yeah, the authenticity is definitely key in the responses. Having the canned responses can be a crutch, but yeah, there's nothing replaces.
Especially like if it's an issue with an employee, like the owner needs to see that and and address that with the employee. Like there's very little I can do from the corporate office. That's their team, that they need to resolve it internally.
Yeah, and I think one suggestion I would have, and this is something to take back to your incredible customer success manager at Soci is, and again, I'm actually, I don't even know if you're doing this or not, but like I mentioned the value of the data, and the click data, and which keywords you're ranking for. Soci can definitely get you a location by location report on a monthly basis of what kind of traffic Google My Business is actually driving to them. Just a quick one pager, and seeing that over time, it's almost like kind of the reports that I get from my power company about my power savings. Kind of seeing like oh, this month you're increased your clicks for directions, by 20%. And also we're seeing, an increase of these category keywords. And if they've done something that month to actually impact that, they can, again, start to connect the dots back to the cash register. That's
right. We do pull the reports and we show that to them during our store visits, and you can sometimes visually obviously see they're seeing it. They're like, there's no denying it, and it definitely helps support our case when we're talking with them.
Nice. Okay, is there one thing?
It's not one thing. There's so many things. But I guess, for us, it's definitely just being consistent, just staying on it, whether, it's, consistently training, consistently supporting the franchisees, just, not just setting, just always being involved and being consistent with what we're doing. And being aware is what I said earlier. That was consistent and aware.
Consistency and consistent progress, right? I think it's like you're not going to, this isn't going to all happen overnight.
Right.
It's you can imagine an ideal future state that you want to get to. But there's this quote that I love that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year and underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So things take time.
For sure.
It's worth it when you put in the work and stay consistent.
Yeah.
Kind of point. And I think I have one. Let's see. We talked about measuring success already. A lot of it's in the data,
and for us, it's our sales. Just seeing how our sales, for sure. And last year, again, the online ordering piece, increasing our SEO, and our social media presence, and our advertising on social media and Google. I think all of those things, but just the sales from that and the traffic to our, all of those online stores. That's how we gauge our success.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, social media is absolutely critical. It's just that the ROI quantification can be a little fuzzy.
True.
Compared to, I think, what you can get out of search, because
yeah.
But again, search is just the bottom of the funnel, like that click for directions, you can't just attribute 100% of that to local search or to Google because they might have seen social media posts or other ads. You got to think about, okay, they searched for cinnamon roll and then they got 3 results in the 3-pack. They're going to click on one of those. That's really where brand and other channels will impact that final click, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can't fall into the trap of last click attribution, which we've, has been a problem for search for, since it started.
Right.
Because so many things went into getting the consumer to that point. I have one question that I'll take. The question is, how can you get a #1 ranking over a competitor who already has a #1 ranking? It's, would say that that's not easy. What I would suggest is, you've got, in Heather's case, you got 57 locations. And when you get those all up into Sochi, you can see where they all rank like today. So what you're going to end up having is you got a set of locations that are already in the, the #1 spot or in the top 3 or and then you have another group that's in the top 10. Then you got another group that's outside the top 10, right? And so you can systematically go about implementing various strategies with content, with responses. Your local landing pages on your website is a big thing. Switching up the content there, making sure you've got the right keywords on your local landing pages, making sure that the content on your local landing pages is unique to the location. You don't want to do a copy and paste across all of those. You want to make it look like a mom and pop website. That's how Google will see it. So and again, Sochi's customer success managers will help you with all of these strategies. And then you let that run for 3-6 months. And what you're going to see, inevitably, you're going to see some of the locations that were out of the top 10 or into the top 10. Some that were into the top 10 are now into the top 3. Some that were in the top 3 are now the #1. And you do everything that you can possibly do from a organic SEO standpoint to get the maximum up out of the organic part of it. Inevitably, though, you're not going to be able to get every location into the top 3 or into the top 1. And this is where the efficiency of local SEO and doing a program like this comes into play, because you can buy the #1 spot, right? It's the Google 4-pack, right? The Google 4-pack has an ad on top and then the 3 organic listings below. But you don't need to buy the #1 spot for all 57 locations. At this point, once you've done this, you've said, okay, here's our 7 locations that we can't get into the top 3. We're just going to bid for those keywords and get those 7 into the top paid placement for whatever reason. There could just be like a huge concentration of competition that's doing a great job on organic, and it's just impossible to overcome that. So once you've exhausted the organic potential, that's when you go to paid. Whereas, a lot of brands and, honestly, a lot of agencies are just going to be like, no, we just want to buy the #1 spot, which is expensive when you're doing that for 57 locations. That's a huge outlay. Get as many as you can up there organically, and then just pay for the ones that you can't. That would be my advice. Is that something you guys have tried at all, Heather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how you game the Google algorithm.
You got to pay to play sometimes.
Sometimes you got to pay to play. Yeah. But yeah, man, and that's another way you can also back into ROI. You can say, okay, like for these locations that we're paying for that keyword, we're spending this much money to buy coffee shop, which is probably a pretty expensive keyword. Whereas these ones are all ranking organically for coffee shop. And so for all of those clicks that we got off that coffee shop, if we're paying 50 cents for the clicks over here, we can say we essentially got those, for free. It's just really the kind of the cost of the software. Any as we wrap up here, Heather, any final thoughts for franchisors?
No, I mean, just again, just know the world we're living in. It's a digital world. Whether it's whatever restaurant it is or industry, if you have an online presence, be familiar with it, and just know that that's where your customers live.
Indeed. Yep. I've talked to so many CMOs on my podcast who have gone 100% digital, over, if they weren't before COVID, that's where they are now. I've heard a number of turnaround stories that where a new CMO came in and all she did was to shift everything from traditional to digital, and all of a sudden they've got double-digit same-store sales growth.
Yep.
Right, and they've cut costs tremendously. So that's not easy with some legacy franchisees, who like seeing the billboards. It makes it very real for them. But again, that's why you gotta bring it back to the ROI and the cash register.
Yep.
Are we out?
Is that it?
We have about 1 more minute left if you have one more question, Rob. I think we're all good.
I think that was pretty exhaustive, I have to say.
There you go.
It was very fascinating to listen to. So thank you both so much, Rob and Heather. It was a pleasure to have you guys. And to Sochi, thank you so much for your sponsorship. Thank you to everyone who was able to attend today. Again, this was recorded and will be made available online. Rob, Heather, thank you guys so much again. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.